Alright guys, I thought I'd do a little bit of an update on While Matter and would I still recommend it now after Brexit and all the other stuff that's been going on. Obviously we've had Brexit, COVID, and so many other things, Ukraine conflict. The first thing is La Matta for us wasn't actually the intended location when we were moving back from Asia. It was just a random meetup with a friend of mine invited me out one bank holiday weekend. I wasn't too keen on moving to the UK. I was looking for somewhere for the kids to get educated and have a good way of life. Because I know a lot the focus is around retirement. Hence, I think Torrebecca's average age is 68, because it is a massive retirement community. I think it's got the highest density of people over 100 in Europe. So the point being is it was quite a safe community in the sense of if you've got that sort of volume of people over a certain age and whatever, I would expect it to be fairly secure because people are there for a reason, and if it wasn't safe there wouldn't be so many of them. But then when I got to Spain myself, because Spain was never on my high places to move to, simply because I wasn't one for Torremolinos or Malaga or Benidorm, these Brit holiday places. It's the sort of place I wouldn't go. And it's sort of kept Spain off my radar for years because I've lived in other countries. I've lived in Germany, I've spent time in France, been all over Asia, bit of time in the Netherlands. But the point being is Spain was never on the radar because of the sort of negative press associated with a lot of the tourism side. So when I went out there, I sort of went out with an open mind, but I wasn't too expecting of what I would find. But what I did find is the area, the weather was good. Where we are on the coast, it is a bit rugged, but at the same time, you've got the salt lakes, you've got a lot of wildlife, a lot of bird life, a lot of facilities. And then you look at the sports facilities as well, because Torrebecca is a city of sport. There's a ridiculous amount of sports there. So you start looking at it from a community point of view and kids, and you start thinking, the kids will do well here. And then it's very multicultural in the sense of you got people from, cosmopolitan. You got a lot of people coming from all over the Northern Europe, and then all the way down to people from Morocco and everywhere else. And people generally aren't bothered what other people are doing. I normally find the people that are less pleasant about the Spaniards or less pleasant about the Brits are the same side of the the opposite side of the same coin. They often got the same issues as their opposites with the people they're whinging about. But what I find is they're few and far between. I find that when we moved to La Mata, the sense of community is very good. We met, like for example, Igor, known him the whole time we've been there pretty much. We've met a lot of friends, and like going into the supermarkets, we know the people behind the counter, we know the butcher, we know Jose at the waterfall restaurant since we first moved there, because April used to go there for coffee, and that's where she met Sylvia, another friend of ours. And there's just a lot of sense of community, and a lot of people have time for each other. That's why when going into the bank, you don't expect to just go straight to the counter, do what you want, and come back out. The person in front of you will take 40 odd minutes because they'll talk about their medical issues or whatever. There's no sense of urgency. Myself, because I've spent a lot of time in other parts of the world, you get used to things take longer than some people would find acceptable in the UK. They get a bit wound up with it. Myself, I'm sort of used to it. You know, I remember discussing with a friend about his bar in the Philippines, where he was sending people out to go and get, like, say, 6 bottles of different alcohols, and it would take them the entire day. They might come back with 2 because they can't find the other 4. And then he's like, why can't these, you know, are these people stupid, all this sort of stuff? And then he went out and did it himself and realised, yeah, you've got to get it when it's there. That's because once it's sold out, it's sold out. You might not see it for months. But the point being is, you adapt to the environment you're in. So it's like recognising things take longer. You know, a lot of things are not as fast. Bureaucracy is a big thing when you start dealing with paperwork. Big one at the moment is biometrics for your residency cards and all that sort of stuff, because of the influx of Ukrainians. The biometrics are difficult. Basically, getting your fingerprints done by the police for your ID cards. It's hard to get an appointment. Prior to that, it was the same because of Brexit, and you know, and you sit there and you go, it is what it is. It's going to take months. But in the UK, you may find that they'll go, oh, you're too late, deport them, you haven't done your paperwork yet. Where in Spain, it's sort of accepted that these things happen. They'll moan about it, don't get me wrong, but when you go, can't get an appointment, what do you want me to do about it? And they're going, well, yeah, but it's late, isn't it? And then they'll still just process it. It's a different mentality. It's the same as we find it quite practical to have, you know, because we've got a lot of friends from all over the place. I think our neighbour at the moment from Dominican Republic, I may be wrong, I'll probably get some slapping for that. But having people that are native Spanish speakers, whatever, is very useful when you're dealing with, like I said, bureaucratic things where common sense may not exist, in the sense of you can't get what they're asking for. And they'll quite happily argue on your behalf. You know, you just take a friend along and they'll go, well, what are you asking for? You know, it's, you know, you can't do this, you know. And then they might just manage to get it over the line because they're arguing in Spanish is better than yours. But I just find this sense of community is very good. I always find there's something going on as well. I mean, if I look at, I think there's activities in La Mata this weekend again, but there's always something going on. I think last weekend it was the foam party, and it's sort of like the end of summer type thing. There's an event. Then shortly before that, we had the Rock for Cancer event in Torrevieja. There's always something going on, even if it's smaller stuff, you know, like, I don't know, learning Spanish on a Wednesday, or there's dance lessons, or boat trips, or bus trips, or hiking groups. Because there's so many people over 60, there's a lot of people with a lot of spare time, which means there's a lot of activities. But then because it's a tourist area, you have a lot of facilities on your doorstep, like go-kart racing. I don't even know how many go-kart tracks there is near us. There's at least 3. But, you know, pony trekking, quad biking, parasailing, learning to sail, jet boats, all sorts of stuff, scuba diving, snorkeling, deep sea fishing, coarse fishing. There's a lot on the doorstep, and it doesn't take long to become part of the community, because you just have to put a little bit of effort in. I mean, I set up a Facebook group. Originally it was around just sharing photographs, and I think there's now over 16,000 members for La Mata. Now La Mata's that's probably half the population of the area, you know, in numbers wise, but the point being is, it's just a group for people just to chat about things that are going on, show the latest photos. I've lost my dog. I try and keep the advertisers restricted in that one, because there's plenty of advertising groups. But the point being is, it's a community group. But then you go, like say in La Mata, there's like a like a village hall type thing, that has community groups for the over 55s, I think it is, which I've always got stuff on, because it's quite funny. This time of year, it's starting to get a bit darker. You'll walk out there, there'll be nobody in there, and then on the way back from somewhere, there'll be about 150 people in there, and then you walk past again a couple hours later, it's empty again. These people just appear. It's quite funny, because La Mata's quite quiet. Well, used to be quite quiet. I think it's got busier. I'm probably one of the reasons, to be fair, because I've been encouraging people to live there. But the other side of that being is, I think with the COVID situation, a lot more people stayed on the coast, rather than being stuck in, say, Barcelona, Madrid, Scandinavia. Because if you're going to be in lockdown, you might as well be on your summer house or whatever on the coast. Now, what would be the downsides? Well, like I says, it's a bit quieter in the winter, but I actually like that. I like the bit where you can find parking without too much headaches, because in the summer it can be difficult sometimes. So having a garage is a good idea, although I do find garages can be overpriced. Property, I think, remain fairly stagnant on the older buildings. The newer ones are expensive. But for me, and the family, we're not trying to impress anybody. We've got a nice location. We got the same beach view as somebody with a house that costs 4 times more. We're quite happy with that. We've done a lot of modernisation to our house, so we're content. I find the costs beneficial, and the reason I use the word beneficial, if I bought something in the UK of a similar sort of size, I'd be paying probably double or 3 times the amount, and it would be functioning around somewhere to live while I make money, so that I could eventually move somewhere I actually want to be. So doing it this way around, we're already down to probably the last quarter of our mortgage, because we hit the mortgage quite hard as soon as we bought the house, did all the renovations. So we're mopping up our costs for living in Spain full time. The downsides would be if you need to work and can't work online, etc. Because if you can work online, internet's very fast. If you're relying on finding a job, you may find it very hard, and you may also find that what you specialise in, you may struggle with. But there is still opportunities out there. I mean, if you're willing to put yourself out, I'm sure you'll find something. So, like myself, I'm sort of looking at how I can adapt what I do on my day-to-day basis to a more semi-retired role. And to say semi-retired lightly is more part-time, because I just want to spend more time with the wife, the kids, and doing more that I enjoy doing, rather than being down the route of focused on work and money. Which, to be fair, the stuff I've been doing it for a very long time, and it's I wouldn't say it's tedious, but it's getting to that point where you'd rather be doing something else. You got to a point where you're not progressing anymore. So for me, being able to evolve it into something I can do remotely, that's where I want to be. But that's why I'm sort of hitting the last quarter on the mortgage, because once that's gone, having no mortgage just leaves us the water, electric, and food costs pretty much for Spain, which isn't a lot. I'd say the cost of living in Spain is less, but I also say that the food quality is much higher, and the selection's better. I mean, where we are in La Mata, there's a lot of different types of supermarket in the area, because obviously you've got like your Carrefour, which is the big supermarket, then you've got your Mercadona, which is the biggest Spanish one, But then you even got Iceland overseas. You've got Tesco's overseas. You've got a Dial Pre. You've got Day, which is I think it's Day, isn't it? Is it DAI? Yeah. Then we got I always forget the one with there's one with the big the buildings painted black. But that's another one which has got more of a. There's a few German selections and a lot more like artisan stuff you find, and there is a lot to choose from. And then you've got your markets, because there's a lot of markets in the area as well. So I find the food quality is a lot better. And then obviously fresh fish. The fish comes from Santa Pola, just up the road from us. Well, Santa Pola or Guatemala. So you got fresh food on the doorstep. The facilities around sports. There's a ridiculous amount of sports in the area. And then if you don't really want to spend any money, get yourself a bike. Plenty of places to cycle. Massive salt lakes. You can cycle around. There's cycling groups. You know, I've got to admit, I'm not one for the old Lycra, but I do like going on the old off-road mountain bikes, going with my son. So there's a lot on the doorstep. Education wise, I think the schools are okay. I think they seem invested in the kids. I do think my kids will do quite well there. I mean, the other thing is they're already multilingual, which sets them up for the future with an advantage a lot of people haven't got. You know, at the end of the day, being able to be fluent in English and Spanish alone is good. But when you expand that out even further, it gives you a good stead for, you know, where you want to be. But like I said, the cost of living, I find reasonable. I find the cost of housing not extortionate, and I do think the market hasn't moved that much, especially on the older builds. But I do think the land's going up in value, so it is worth looking. You know, if you're looking at La Mata, La Mata's landlocked. You know, people go, "Oh, well, they're going to build these big developments," and I'm going, "Where?" you got the beach, you got the sand dunes, and you got the Salt Lake in the N332 main road. It's pretty much landlocked, unless they bought up old properties. And to be fair, a lot of the older properties are owned by Spaniards, and they don't do them on the cheap. You're looking at quite an expensive redevelopment, even if you wanted to. Don't get me wrong, I think it'll happen, because you go a couple of streets along, the houses there are 400,000 upwards. So knocking a house down for 150,000, I think they've done it with some of the older properties. But that's progress. But did they need to knock the houses down? Personally, I don't think so, because it's not as if they increased the square meterage. The sizes of the rooms and whatever are limited by the size of the lots. So unless you're actually taking a double lot and making it a single bigger house, you're not actually going to make any real benefit beyond having a newer property. But I do like being there. And then you get on to commuting. Access to Alicante Airport is perfect for us. You know, because obviously I work in UK and commute. That means I leave my car at the airport. That goes with eco parking. They shuttle bus me back to the car, which is about 5 minutes from the airport departure gate, and I'm back in the house within 45 minutes. That's €250 a year. Flight wise, I don't find the cost too expensive going backwards and forwards, and if you're doing it a couple of times a month it's not a biggie. If you're doing it weekly, it might hit the pocket, but ultimately, as the mortgage goes, my flexibility will start to move to a lifestyle of being in Spain more and more. but there isn't much it doesn't have in the area. Healthcare wise, it's good. You've got the private hospital nearby and the state hospital, both are pretty good. I've had no issues with either. Biggest issue's been mechanics. So, but we've got a couple of good mechanics, so I can't grumble at that anymore. That used to be the issue, is bad mechanics. But would I still recommend it? Yes. Because one of the things I notice as well, even myself when I go back, because like now I've got the flu, you might hear it in my chest. When I'm in Spain, I can go and sit on the balcony, well, sort of lounge on the balcony up on the roof, get that blast of the old sun and vitamin D. You feel a lot better quite quickly. It's the same as when you get off the plane and you just get that initial sort of holiday mode sunlight, and it just makes you feel much happier and better, rather than overcast and thinking, is it going to rain this afternoon? Which I think, when you look at it from why there's more of a sense of community there, that has a big part of it as well, because the fact is, if people are feeling happier, then they're more happy generally, and they're more likely to talk to others, they're more likely to be helpful, they're more likely to be on the upside, the sunny side up. There's many reasons that it's all positive. There's very few negative things there. I know some people complain about the Guardia. I got stopped by the Guardia recently, but I think a lot of it is when people don't speak any Spanish, etc. There's a bit of frustration on both sides, but it's nothing that shakes or bothers me. I mean, I used to get stopped a lot in the UK when I was younger, and that's why in the UK they rubbed me up for the wrong way for so many years that I just don't like them anymore. But with Spain, I find they're a bit more, I don't know, they may be a bit more blunt, but I find they generally don't have any of the hassles that was used to get in the UK, where they try and stop you for something and yet have no reason to stop you, then try to be your best mate type thing, which I found a bit weird. But all in all, I think Spain's good, and I think when you're looking at the cost of living crisis, it's probably easier in Spain on the coast. I mean, I don't know what the cities are like, because there's a lot of access to cheap food, because of the markets and other things. But also you've got, if you want solar power, you're going to be able to keep your electric costs down. We went solar water already. That's brought the cost down considerably on our electric bills every month. And then obviously you only have heating for a few months of the year. So the practicalities of living in Spain are quite cheap. Private medical insurance is one that can be expensive. I'm not even sure what mine is these days. It was about 120 a month. But would I still recommend moving to Spain? Yeah. Like I say, as long as you can sort work out, the rest of it I recommend. You'll find it easy. Learning Spanish, I've got to admit, my Spanish is not fantastic, and people go, oh, you should spend more time. If you realise how much workload I have, it is the main problem. I'm always busy, so it's a bit of like at the moment I'm looking at learning Python, which is for programming. So the point being is I'm learning another language. It's just not Spanish, but it doesn't mean I don't understand a lot of Spanish, doesn't mean I don't converse in Spanish. I do if I have to, but once I'm there more, I'll spend more time on my language. But I do recommend integration as the main thing. You'll find it opens up the whole place. It's a bit like our neighbour just retired and was doing the paella at one of the fiesta things last week. Because once you start getting into the community, everybody knows you, and you become part of things and start getting roped into things. You start getting involved in things that you may not normally put yourself forward, but somebody soon will do. Some will go, oh, they can do that, they're good at that. And then you become part of the whole area. You are part of La Mata. But yeah, I love La Mata. It's a great place to be. Sense of community is good. I find pretty much no crime. And I've no regrets. The only regrets we do here, my wife mentioned this a while back, because she's part of the Ladies of Spain group, is a lot of people will say they wish they'd done it sooner. Would I agree or disagree? From my point of view, it'd be difficult because we're already in Asia and other places, so it's not as if we're setting up for retirement. It's like even now, it's sort of moving us to a different phase in our lives by once the mortgage is gone, because it's moving us to a ability to be in Spain all the time for the kids, and just finding a new niche to set a business up. But the main thing for me is the kids are happy, so get to spend time with my wife and kids all the time, and if we've got that, good health, what else do you need? But yeah, still recommend La Mata. There's nothing I could actually say that it's... Yeah, I can't think of anything negative. Alright, thanks for watching.